I saw you at like a couple of networking things. So,
Yeah.
and I've known Brad. We started working at 10.
Yep. Yeah.
So 3 or 4 times in 13 years.
That doesn't seem very good.
And he looks exactly the same. And I look like I've been to hell and back.
Well, you're back at
He's,
least.
yeah, yeah, I am. Yeah.
Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 30 of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. Good to be here. Will, how are you, brother?
I am well. 30. Time flies. That's
It's
awesome.
crazy. I think I've been saying a work in progress, and it's really just work in progress. What do you think?
I've noticed that, but I chose not to judge.
But you haven't said anything?
How sensitive you are.
Okay, I was going to say it's because you don't care, but no, it's a little of
Maybe it's both.
So I'm wearing my podcast shirt. I think I've probably worn this shirt for about a third of our episodes.
I'm very excited. Speaking of shirts,
yes,
first pink golf shirt I've ever owned. Was very excited to wear this today because it's new.
It's nice.
And I think about like what I wear for the podcast. I'm like, did I ever wear this yet? I stand there in the closet and trying to make sure that I'm wearing the right one. So this is new. I broke this out for you and Brad today.
You are looking great. We'll get to Brad in just a minute. I just tell everybody today that I am visiting with my mom, 88. Hi, Mom. And there's a very good chance she's going to come walking through the screen. So if she does, I'm going to put her on for a minute.
That's
and
great.
Then,
she's one of our 3 listeners. Right?
Yeah, she's one of our best ones. And then, Will, you have to help me on this. If I call Who's Next or Bloopers a session and not a segment, you have to catch me in that because it's not a session. It's a segment. This is a recording session.
You prefer to be caught doing something good, so it's okay for me to call you out for being naughty?
Yeah, because I'm giving you permission.
Okay, good. You permission. Right, we're clear then. Yeah. I don't want you to get upset when we're recording.
I can't guarantee that because I'm John Lane.
I'm Will Barfield.
And we are a work in progress.
A work in progress.
See, that's where comes in because I'm using it in a sentence. We are a work in progress. Great. So today we are joined by our lumberjack friend, Brad McGinity. I've had to practice that. That'll show up in bloopers. Good to see you, brother.
Nailed it. McGinity. That second eye, it is hiding, but it is there. It is there. Good
to
be with you.
It's hiding. Yeah, we'll come back up again. So thank you for being with us. I think this is our take 2, right? A little mulligan action from a few weeks ago.
We don't have to tell anybody about that. I guess we're a work in progress. So sometimes you got to do 2 tries. So maybe it's okay.
Yeah, there you go.
That wasn't your fault. That was flight logistics, wasn't it?
That's true. Yeah. It was United Airlines' fault.
You're they were a potential sponsor. We'll have to cut that out.
You just picked up a Delta sponsorship.
Yeah, well, we'll take whoever. Brad, tell us about yourself, Hone, and anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah, my life is a blessed set of fortuitous things that I didn't plan for. So, grew up in Baltimore, came down to college at UNC Chapel Hill, met a girl. She's from Raleigh, so I live in Raleigh.
There you go.
We got married fresh out of college, and then I stumbled my way into software, sales, and startups. Nowadays, there's all kinds of people who choose that career path. I was a dumb 23-year-old who just needed a job. And I found a place that is perfect for me, and my personality so clicks into the environment in which I work. So I was at a company called Bronto, which many people know, and then I started a company called Windsor Circle. I was doing an MBA, amazing boot camp for being an executive and a founder. Then I joined an HR tech company called 15Five, was there for about 5.5 years, and that was my First bump from VP of sales into CRO. At 15.5, I had marketing, sales development, customer support, customer success, implementation. I launched professional services. I launched partnerships. Did a bunch of our finance stuff. It was amazing. Grew it or participated, I should say. I didn't grow it myself. Was a team member there from 30 to around 300 people. And then in January this year, I joined a company called Hone Group. We do live online cohort-based training on power skills. So it's a phenomenal methodology and program that people love to get better at jobs.
Wow.
Oh, and I'm Chief Revenue Officer.
Nice.
John, we could use that to get better at podcasting. Maybe that is.
We probably
I don't know
could.
if we could. It'd be a significant investment.
Yeah,
long way to go. At least I do.
We haven't really invested much in this besides our time. So.
No.
And some software.
That's clear.
I want to come back to when we get into this, Will.
Yes.
Which we'll do right now. Just all the things that Brad does in his role. We're going to point to why he can do that with an example from OAD. Okay. So everybody who is watching, what are they called, Will?
Whipsters.
There you go.
This is new. I like whipsters.
Yeah, that's fun. So everyone who knows and who's watching knows that on this pod, we talk about leadership traits under stress. Leadership traits under stress come from the easy to administer, brief, and highly accurate OAD assessment up here. Note, it's not a test. And then we get the results, and then we cleverly transform strengths and weaknesses into superpowers and kryptonite. Maybe someday DC Comics will come talk to us. I don't know. And then we have an interview. And so off we go. So where we go from here is we talk about the OAD Leadership Style Matrix Classic MBA 2x2. So the cuts for us are generalists on the top, specialists on the bottom, socially oriented on the right, technically oriented on the left. Like me, Brad is a socially oriented generalist. He's in the builder quadrant. Unlike me, he is a pathfinder and not a negotiator. And what I like about pathfinder and its opposite, the perfectionist, is that it's a straight line, and we'll get to that. Actually, we'll get to that right now. So you can see, straight down, high A, then E, then P, then D. We'll ask him.
Brad, how does it feel to have who you are compressed down into a two-dimensional table? Do you feel oversimplified here?
You know,
or do you feel seen?
If you ask my wife, we've been married for 17 years this August, and you ask her, what is your favorite thing about me, honey? She says to me, you're tall. So this feels very similar. You know, we've compressed our entire marriage, all of my attributes down to you're tall, and now I'm 4 dots on a line. It fits.
Yeah, it does.
I like that. Okay, let's break it down. So if everyone remembers one slide ago, he was in upper right. The way you get into the upper right is your A is higher than your D. That makes you a generalist. Your E is higher than your D. That makes you socially oriented generalist. The opposite is the perfectionist, which is AEPD. And so this is a very, I love when those two come together because it's super clean. So what you would say about this profile is that Brad is very open, he's venturesome, he's comfortable with risk. He is eager to delegate. It's not just that he will delegate, he is absolutely happy to, thrilled if possible. Then we look at his E and his D relationship, and that means because it's so much higher to the right than the D, that means he is extremely social. He is persuasive. He is a seller, not a teller. He is a type of person who has an optimistic outlook, easy to trust. When you meet Brad, you like Brad. just right out the gate. And then we look at our friend A and P, and A and P help us understand a person's level of urgency versus process and their comfort with change. And so when your P is to the left of the A, the way Brad's is, he is an urgent guy. Yesterday was better than today, certainly better than tomorrow. He's more than likely doing multiple things, and we'll go from the green room and say, I know he has at least 2 screens up and doing this recording, so possibly 3, and super urgent and comfortable with change. And so that's how we get into that. Anything you want to say, Brad? How accurate and easy it was.
Yeah, well, I would actually say 2 things. One, like, it's pretty dang accurate, for better or for worse. And the other thing is that when you told me, you asked me if I would come and participate, I said yes. Great, I love you all, happy to do it. Then you sent me homework, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And then I opened up the screen to see what I had to click through, and I was like, oh, this is actually going to be really stinking easy. And so I think I was done in 5 or 10 minutes.
Yep.
And I'm honestly, I've done enough personality tests. I'm a big Enneagram guy. Like, I am stunned at how accurate this is relative to the workload that I put into it, because it's pretty spot on.
Can I say something? John,
Yeah.
do I have permission to speak?
Oh, yeah.
So the interesting thing, and Brad at 15.5, not the same thing, but was in the survey and evaluation business.
Yeah.
He's taken these, he's administered these, he's seen a lot of them in his career, I know. And what drew John and I to OAD was that simplicity, Brad, because it's 2 screens of adjectives. It's just word choice selection. And the thought is that the speed and simplicity, how can it be this accurate? But actually, because there's no forced choice, more or less, no multiple choice, A, B, C, D, the person who's filling this out isn't thinking about what is the right answer or what answer they're looking for or what's socially acceptable. They're just picking words. And the speed leads to less thought and focus on what should be done. And you're just more honest about yourself.
Agreed. And let me just also point out, the reason you didn't know how easy it was in the homework was because you didn't read the email where I told you how easy it was.
I think there's something in this about how I'm not a detail-oriented person.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes. Will.
All right. Yes.
This is your segment of the show.
So, Mr. McGinity, thrilled to have you here, my friend. For the audience, for those who don't know about my history of Brad, he and I've known each other for 13 years, and I've had the great benefit of working with him in the past. He's been a customer and a client, and he's been a very good friend and someone I like a lot. So glad that you're here. Anybody who lands in the upper right quadrant, Brad, and that builder adventurer is going to get these generic readouts, right? They're going to get these superpowers and this kryptonite. So we're not going to spend too much time on this slide, but when you look at those superpowers, is there one of them that really grabs you, or you're like, that's super accurate, I feel that, or people say that about me?
Man, to pick one is difficult. The one, I'll say the one that does stand out a little bit more than the other ones is probably number 2, Venturesome. And so much of this comes from my mom. I think, in many ways, we're all a reflection of our parents, for better and also for worse at times. And my mom is an adventurous spirit. When she graduated from college, she went off to Korea during the war and volunteered with the Red Cross. She's got all these crazy stories about flying on helicopters in these dangerous situations. And then my parents, before I was born, they both worked on Wall Street. They quit their jobs on Wall Street. They bought a 15-passenger van and a trailer. And for 2 years, they traveled North America. And they only had summer clothes. And their favorite story is how they were scuba diving in Mexico one day in early March. And they said, "You want to go skiing?" And they packed up and they drove to Colorado and went skiing. And that kind of zest for life, like everything's a possibility. I'm somebody who desires change. I love new experiences. I'm more driven by how can we make this thing possible, and less by here are the reasons this won't work. Um, and so that one kind of stands out a little bit. It's just, to me, like, that's so much part of what makes life full of joy and fun.
That's awesome. All right. So pressure's on, stress is high, things are hard, superpowers invert, become kryptonite, strengths become weaknesses. On the kryptonite side here, which one of these do you notice or maybe have had others point out to you, either peers or managers in the past, that like when something is hard, this pops out?
Yeah. Um, I feel like these are all interrelated with one another as I think about them. The
True.
impatience, ready, aim, fire, freewheeling, non-compliance, resistant to structure. Like, you get into a tough situation, and it is totally true that I am more likely to make decisions based on gut than data. Because I'm persuasive, I can generally get people on board. Because of my role in the org chart, people sometimes don't feel as confident to tell me that I'm wrong and to tell me to shut up and listen to them. And so, and I'm looking for reasons that we could just make this thing work.
Yeah.
Not for all the reasons that it is not going to work. And I'm comfortable with a plan that is kind of half baked because I'm good at improvising. And other people who are really good at process are oftentimes not that way. And so it can create morale issues at times. It can certainly just create chaos because we're not all actually moving in the same direction in a coordinated way. And it can lead to potentially a lot of frustration for the team members who are part of it, on top of less optimal outcomes in terms of the actual result that we produce as well. So it is a place where I'm trying to learn and grow, but the biggest thing that I need is my colleagues and team members who potentially might be under me in the org chart, not necessarily me or above me in the org chart, to say, dude, slow down, you're wrong. We got to think through these issues first.
Great. Okay. So as part of your homework, sorry about that. You reviewed the results. You and John communicated. You responded back and kind of picked some things on the superpower side that you wanted to discuss or that you had some feelings about. Can you walk me through these bullets a little bit here? And I'm going to listen and probably question. Yes, John.
Walk me through them too.
Oh yeah, sorry. Don't leave John out. Walk us.
What about the whipsters? Do they get to get walked?
No,
Yes,
no,
all of them.
No, it's just
all
me.
Of them. All of them. Okay.
Just me in my new pink shirt. Just me.
All right, just Will. Okay. The one sentence from the OAD that totally stood out for me was this first one here, and maybe actually you said it to me, John. Maybe it was in the document. I don't know, but that I care what gets done a whole lot more than I care how it gets done. I think that this is something that is like definitely built into my personality, but then also, and this is where it's like, well, have I just used this as an excuse because it's built into my personality? But like, people who work for you, like they don't want to be micromanaged. They want the freedom and autonomy to do it and to get to the outcome in the way that they feel is right. And Dan Pink wrote a whole book called Drive about this very idea of what motivates people. And so when people ask me, like, what's your management style? My management style, the way I describe it is, I want to give you really clear goals. I want to give you kind of guardrails and boundaries of what's unacceptable and acceptable. I want to give you resources to go get it done. And then I want to get out of your way and just let you accomplish it. You're smart, you're thoughtful, you know more about it than I ever will. Like, let me get out of your way and bring your brilliance and your creativity to bear on this issue. But I care a whole lot about what gets done. And so one of the areas for me to grow, and this is attention with my lack of attention to detail, one of the areas for me to grow is how clearly can I articulate what done looks like. And I've gotten better at it over the years, and Brene Brown talks about painted done and all that kind of stuff. But that's an area for me to grow. But that one like totally stood out and put some words to how I felt for a long time in terms of my kind of management style. I've spent my career in high growth, venture backed, and therefore very high risk startups. my entire career, my compensation plan has had a very significant chunk of it that was variable compensation. I've worked for companies where a very significant portion of my compensation shows up in like a lottery ticket in the form of a stock option. I love it. Like I sleep great at night. My mental health is generally pretty good. I don't live with a ton of stress despite the fact that like I'm surrounded by stress. And it's because something about the way that I'm wired, like I like this. And
Yeah,
like if I want
that's
to
very
work
generalist. That's very generalist, Brad. Yeah.
Is that what's the association, John, between generalist and risk taker? Because like those two things don't necessarily feel like they have to go together.
Yeah, well, the generalist, that's the A over the D is how it's quote unquote calculated. But when we see a significantly higher A over D, the words we use are things like venturesome and open to risk and open to delegation. It's a little bit inside baseball, but it depends on what adjectives you pick. Because remember,
Okay.
OAD isn't telling you about you. You told OAD about you. It just normalized it and put it in a table. And there's some other science and other stuff behind it, which as a high A, high E, I don't really pay attention to.
And that A being assertiveness, Brad, is really that's the lead over the D being detail orientation. So you're going to be more likely to take risks when the assertion overpowers the need for covering every single detail and being super process focused. And just that's what lands you in that on the generalist side as opposed to specialist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I'm jumping in as a producer role. I know Brad has a hard out because he has a graduation and other stuff. So Will, take us into the Netherlands.
I will, and don't go back, leave the slide where it is. I am going to comment. Brad mentioned earlier about he feels like he's in the perfect industry. And for someone who is in his quadrant and is this, particular profile, I agree completely. You cannot be in a better setting for what it is that makes him happy than the world of startup. He's never been afraid of risk. And when he and I started working together, he was, betting on a recruiting model that, didn't have a lot of proof in the pudding. And he was like, yeah, let's try it. And that's just kind of always been the way he's been. He hasn't bet on his gut, and he's won far more than he's lost because of that. Kryptonite, Brad, you picked these things out and made some notes here for us about the inversion when things get hard, stressful, difficult situations. On the occasion that maybe you can't sleep well, which is rare, probably. Why did you make these notes?
Yeah. I think that there is a meaningful portion of my job that to be good at it requires me to get into the weeds. It's not just a big part of it is like understanding data.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for the entire customer journey and to make sure that our customers are successful. And so each of my functional leaders is thinking about their singular department. And of course, they do a good job of thinking about the whole journey. But it's my job to obsess over the whole journey. And there's handoffs in there, and there's cross-functional coordination that needs to happen. And I'm oftentimes like, we're not a huge company, right? So I'm oftentimes kind of the one person or the linchpin who is recognizing the needs across two different departments and needs to be the bridge to connect those two people so that they can work on it together to go solve that issue. And if I'm not the one calling it out, it might not get noticed, but it's kind of my job because I'm by design looking at the whole thing. In startups, like the Facebook quote for years, and I think they've changed this, but it was move fast and break things.
Yikes. We don't say that anymore.
Yeah. I think Facebook edited it to just move fast because like a server went down one day. But it is very easy in startup environments to justify irresponsible behavior by saying, but I'm supposed to move fast. I'm in a startup. We're supposed to innovate. We're supposed to take risks. We're supposed to try new things. Right. It's like, yeah, but at what point are you just actually being reckless and irresponsible? And so I've always worked in organizations that say this place moves the fastest that I've ever seen. There's constant change around here, and for some people it is too much. And and that's one of those things where it's like, well, to some degree that's just going to be the way that it is. But then also, how do I moderate that in the right way to not create that whiplash?
My friend's mom.
Cool.
And yeah, the emotions distort activity. I can go on to that one. I'm not going to let you off this page before you talk about that.
Yeah. I want to think that I'm a very analytical person and that I'm making decisions based on data and evidence. Things like the OAD and Enneagram and some other things would say that maybe I'm actually a little bit more of an emotionally driven decision maker than I would like to admit.
You absolutely are. Will, just point out that low EC for him. Yes.
There we go. So, part of it is like, that's not exactly who I want to be. I have a responsibility in my role as Chief Revenue Officer to be making objective decisions. So, I think it's one of those things where it starts with awareness. And hopefully as I'm making important decisions, I can at least be aware of that and kind of check myself a little bit. And I think it's one of those places where it's really important for me to be surrounded by people who feel like they can challenge me and ask me those questions around, what is the objective reason for making this decision?
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate the way you spoke about speed versus accuracy of this tool, and touching on that for us earlier. This clearly brought up some things you've thought about before, reinforced some things that you've processed, and perhaps surface some things that you're like, yeah, I really need to pay attention or work on that. You've been through this exercise pre-show and now live with us. What are some things that you gathered, learned, have reflected on, and seen again that you can apply near term, etc., as leadership lessons gained from this exercise with us that you can use?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, for many organizations out there right now, like the economy's tough. It's affecting morale across their organizations. In some places, layoffs are happening. I've got these superpowers around positivity, belief that we can accomplish good things, a sense of self-confidence and confidence in the organization that we can go do those things. It's a place where I'm trying to lean into those strengths right now as the leader of the organization to provide a sense of consistency and people need leadership, right? And so as the leader, it's good when that's coming kind of from within, more so than something I really do believe in the types of businesses that I've worked in. Simultaneously, like it's a world that requires us to change, and so I have been, because we've been designing our OKRs, we did design our OKRs for Q2, and we're starting to think about what Q3 is going to look like. That is the place where, for me, to check into the details, to be thinking cross-functionally around the dependencies, to slow down a little bit more on the planning process so that we can move faster in the execution process, is a place that I'm thinking about. And I've gotten a little bit better at being vocal with my team in terms of saying, yeah, I know that I'm loud and assertive and decisive, but also like, check me. Like, you have my permission and my invitation to check me.
Love that.
Did you, when you identified this position, this new opportunity at home, did you have any history with executives there? I mean, was this something that, how did you, just last thing as we wrap up here, how did you find this?
Yeah, it was an executive search firm.
And they saw your OAD and like, I'm kidding.
I'm John Lane.
I'm Will Barfield.
And we are a work in progress.
Work in progress. Thank you, Brad. It was great. Good to see you, my friend.
So good.
Bye, everybody.
Appreciate you.
Have a good week. Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions. Available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Lane and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Lane. Thanks for watching. See you next week.